Okay, so Master Mason note coming at you here. I figured we'd do a little programming in the simulator here. We'll get a little HUD time on. And you got to figure out what your desk is, what that looks like for you. Some people call it motivation. Some people call it meditation. Some people call it whatever it is, really. Um, so for me, I like game theory. I like designing kind of any XY grid, and that's going to get you straight into the chessboard. This move, that move, it's all kind of a binary. Can you, can't you? There's a third point of physics, like Hornet. Uh, Changing graph, like, oh, well, you got to take care of that. It's like, no human or under the unless you're just going to let it fucking do stuff, which is a different kind of weird. Um, so anyways, with game board theory, a lot of that I've been kind of kicking around some D&D. I like a D&D breakdown. That's my militia method to build your combatives. That's your orc variable or any subcategory under the command directive. Military Joint Chief of Staff, if you want to break that down in a notebook journal side by side with Sun Tzu. Team dynamics, especially when you're in like mill operations or 2, 3, 4, 5 guys, morning rotations, different variables on those sets, kind of handy. You start with the day sequences. There's first, second, third shift variables, and to be honest, between the first, second, and there's Sawyers across the board, but operations are different. So essentially, the element you're a third shift Sawyer or function because day-night cycles are different, right? Night navigation and day navigation, polar north and magnetic north, in terms of what the north is on the map, and how you have to kind of orientate those things to it. Those are cards. So a map is a card. This is the scale. XY for the direction. When I put a Z function on here, which is an X function, all X's are Z's. It's all that binary 0, 1 to XY, this length, this distance, this timeline to explain a certain topic. You can cubically cube anything to fit inside of a one page, one card. Here's Magic the Gathering. Here's the role of the bones given the combinations and what you have left based on energy, mana, that could be calorie count. Intrinsic value of a stick, I always like that. It could be used for fire, if you turn that over, security, protection, and when it's there on that topography being your lean-to, it's hard to want to do different things with it. But it's always there to have that value to it. And for your time dynamics or your radiant, your R1 horizon problem, given dark matter and lensing, from different trajectories, it's still going to have some common values to which frame is coming in here. So we could use any example out here, and honestly, to me and you in that tree, if somebody was sitting in this hypothetical area right here that defines a bunch of graph pieces of paper in physics, that any job correlated to X, Y, in the graph, I could talk about that plum tree's timeline. That's the HUD value right here, and that's the one we need. Or in the sawmill, I'm not going to switch that off into, here's the tree of mana card in my portfolio or clipboard. I'm going to go, here is the tread saws chain fix mechanics that follow this sequence on a maintenance rotation of Master Mason walkthroughs. Now, for me, I had to go through every single one of these categories as they diverged into which one are the main topics that still fully represent V at the top. If the mill is good, I make it through any one of these divergent or how they come back around and do things. However, if I didn't that day or on a maintenance schedule of which one interjects inside of this frame and graph, and how do you physically do the mechanical operation? What are the timelines to taking that off, to looking at the clock at the time of the day, which crew lines you have on, because that's the army card. That's everything in the shuffle here that just kind of played off Yu-Gi-Oh! And you got to be able to play that mechanics. There's probably, given that operation, a very subset of physics, and even if it was exploded, you could be like, well, I am not dead yet, and I'm supposed to be the dead card on here, how to play these all kind of crazies and this one first, triage. And honestly, at that point in time, there is nothing you can do about the physical operation between doing this. Either it's untracked yet, or it takes X amount of time to be done. And that card is a sequence, and it plays the EM fields and values that get this hard spot right here, that's salty. Wherever they are on the hypothetical planes and boards of how all this general relativity, because you're probably at, you're Saturday right now, you're probably not at work, it's quarantine time. What guys come in here? How's Johnny playing the football game? The high school, Betty, the girls on the board, she's from gravity up here, probably taking up pretty much half of your space right here if you're 18 or something. And anything else that's on the board for what kind of EM fields those particles, right? Those are landscaper maps, topography, just how to do that operation in the quick line, and then back in the truck on the next one for weekly monthlies, because it's all going to come sitting at you. You get a bunch of phone calls. So how do you play that? Well, we could, and that's how we're going to do it like this with this, that, and that makes it a can. But those become the physics for that specific topography, EM field monster you're dealing with, because for you, it's something, if you're somebody calling in somebody, something you can't handle. It's a devil on the floor. It's just a wave distortion of, fixing some crazy shit on your house because the age and number and physics for dual diagnosis, triple body problems in the way for you. And essentially that's what got you some way, shape or form, economically, cost, turnover, kids, family, just anywheres where that monster might be living for you. And how you have to go about handling that, because that is going to be the adjusted model to it. Poncure says, physics is all FMA preordained, right? The ball's going to go like this as long as it was here on the graph. And if it showed that, that's how you do that. Ball, rock, court case of throwing a ball or a rock at somebody with a glove or without matter. And so why physics across the board force MA to Puncure's globular state, like, it's a building falling over version of an FMA kind of a deal, and air turbulence, whatever. Acoustic flutter, baryonic harmonics, Bose-Einstein condensate, to say that is the fucking stone mill. This is what it is. This is this carpentry job fishing hole, because the fish are going to be right there. See that spot where the fish are jumping consistently over the time? That's where they're going to be. A tree over here usually. They a shady hot day. Put it in there. Find other things. It's not a lake. It's something different. You can see the bottom in this one. I'm giving you 40 miles an hour to work with here. Don't break it. So those are your cards. And I got a lot of them. You'll have a lot of them. It's just, it may not look like much. I'll go ahead and take a picture of it here. But there's landscapers rotation. If you wanted to get into what the big thing is when I go out there and I go about doing whatever one of those I deem worthy to go about doing, I do it to a line that's arbitrary to what anybody else thinks, fixing up one of those stone walls should be. For me, based on certain sequences, outside of that, then there's timelines where that number correlates to saws being programmed, crew being trained. And why would they look any different? They take the same amount of time to write out at the end of the day. And you put your Murphy on it. Draw you a couple of times. Do it like 80 times until you figure it out. Till you figure out which one of those drawing, graph, designs, or combinations of those things. Hey, it took me some time. I pulled big economics, psychology, and mathematics card. Whether you go mathematics and physics in the sub breakdown, psychology and sociology, astrology, whatever subcategories are up underneath that, or mathematics, linguistics, some way to define this letter's not this letter, and you can't just say Marlar to everything. It's not physics everything, it's that plum tree. What do you mean it's that plum tree? How can it be that? Because that is the same graphs you use to describe general relativity. All the renormalizations, it is here, it's there, it's got this angle here to define its topography, to where, north, south is kind of, that's a standard bar of trees fucking, pull over to it because they grow that way, but light's going this way, black holes would make it go this way, kind of gravity. You know, and that's that physics in the Ford. That shit's also spinning real fast. So, uh, not necessarily gonna. Does differently. It would bend this way, and if the wind topography does that and bends some trees over, that is kind of a bar marker of how strong that fucking wind is. You know what I mean? It's I got a little pond up the road here. I go to that one, and every once in a while, I can just tell by the wave function on the water what general windage it is. You know, I can show you that, I can train you that, but to know where that tweak comes in when you're out there needing to do that one to that negotiation or just look off at it to make sure, given the distance, you know, nobody can teach you that simple sign or why it correlates to, hey, remember those sticks we were talking about in that tree that you're just kind of fucking staring at, drooling? Yeah, maybe right now we're having, for you sitting out there for that moment, that stick and the way you're putting that together might be relative. And just drawing some circles in the sand, pulling battleships with a couple of pulleys, right? Block, tackle, snatch block, yeah, snatch block it, and get in there, wrestle around the chains a few times, and oh yeah, you're gonna get caught. You're gonna get caught. You're gonna load a dozer in some bad ground. Said harder, man. You know, it wouldn't have been that ground wasn't, but it's on a floating floor. You know, it's a rainy day the day before. Got a couple of, we were going, you know, we were on we were on it. We had a crew of just meteorologists planning that battle. You know, they were like, hey, come in like this, and it come out like something different. We don't make stone that day. We don't even make stone. We lost 2 or 3 guys. The dozer's down. We got to get a truck guy on it. Fucking excavator to pull it out. Hard day. What do? You do what you can. You get back to, well, usually if it's me and I didn't fuck that up, I go back to the mill and I find me a pile because there's really nothing I can do until the excavator gets there. It's going to be one guy with a chain operation. I get back to the pile. That's what I do. That would be the series of moves. Stand, you could. You certainly could. Stand there all day, put your feet up, wait in the truck. Well, boy, fucking them's the breaks day. And I suppose if you earned it, you could get away with it, but I'm not saying you should. Do something. You're there on the clock. Keep it going. You keep placing. That happens once. They're probably like, yeah, but it's fine. And then for the rest of the night, you're fucking twisted about it. Anyways, did I get away with it? They're thinking to themselves, I'm going to beat that motherfucker with a crowbar lady. Try to pull that shit with me. That is physics. It always happens 99% of the time. So you got to figure out how to handle it and how to play it. You know, so if it was and the iron comes around on you and you get beaten by the wrench, there's very specific physics or people you call about this thing to handle that kind of situation. Either way, just run around shooting people in the face, purge style, is not acceptable. You don't get to do that. If it gets sideways, I'm sure there'll be a hitter squad at the top to do this for us. So, I mean, honestly, just try to pull it together when they come around. My hillside is right. You know, this is tough living out here, brother. There's a lot of creepy, I mean, you can't move. You can go slow down here, man. This ain't the jungle floor where it's like soft, squishy, this shit's dry, fucking crunchy. Bud deer, though. Oh, no. Right. Well, that's a different animal. You know, you gotta rabbit, lambda, Euler kelk, wolf kelk. I mean, they're just 2 numbers that kind of timeline. You know, if I did route A with lambda, did averages of the bunny and the count and gridding all this off and said that's the area and did that 2 or 3 times and found the same number because calculus. You know, I can assume that that's the right ratio in numbers, but I can't dictate what comes in out of that box. There could have been an arbitrary line of bunnies right on the outside of that, and I can't cover the whole world if bunnies aren't everywhere. We're not talking about Bunny Island, we were talking about. Catch you on the next one.